Where 1,400 vanilla orchids once thrived, only ash remained.
This can't be right. It was just a greenhouse.
The National Confectioners Association sued Sophia Whitmore for $30 million.
We are here because one woman's arrogance incinerated a national resource.
12 household name brands in ice cream and baking stood united behind the suit, and the man whose life's work she destroyed held the complaint with a calm that shamed her fury. The blaze had consumed not just a greenhouse, but a lineage tracing back to 1947, 3 months earlier. Sophia Whitmore had called Ronald's greenhouse industrial blight. Now she was named in the largest food-related lawsuit in American history. But to understand how she got here, we go back to the day it all began. 3 months earlier, Ronald Reeves began his morning the same as every morning for the last 15 years.
One day to bloom. One chance to pollinate.
Inside his greenhouse, 1,400 vanilla orchids climbed wooden posts, each vine a link to a century-old legacy. He checked temperature and humidity with the precision of a man who knew the plant's every need. The HOA violation notice read: greenhouse structure constitutes industrial blight. Removal required within 30 days. Signed, Sophia Whitmore, Architectural Review Chair.
Industrial blight? That greenhouse has been standing since before the HOA even existed.
The Ridgeline Homeowners Association had recently elected a new board, led by a woman who saw uniformity as the highest virtue. Sophia Whitmore filed her complaint with the manicured precision of someone who'd never been told no.
Grandpa, I won't let them erase what you built.
But Sophia Whitmore was just getting started. The following Thursday, Ronald Reeves walked into the Ridgeline HOA meeting, carrying his grandfather's ledger and a quiet resolve.
That greenhouse is a breeding ground for pests. It drags down every home value in this neighborhood.
The greenhouse predates the HOA by 23 years. It's a registered commercial nursery that supplies bakeries across this state.
I don't care about your bakeries. The board has the authority to deem any structure an eyesore, and we will.
Then you'll be violating state agricultural protection laws. My greenhouse qualifies as a protected farm operation.
The other 4 board members sat in silence, their suburban lawns in identical beige houses embodying everything Sophia demanded.
This board votes next week, and I can promise you, Ronald, the outcome won't be in your favor.
Ronald left the community hall that night, knowing the vote would go against him.
It's not about the greenhouse. It's about power. And she'll stop at nothing.
But Sophia wasn't waiting for a vote. She was already drafting the paperwork for immediate enforcement. 2 days later, a county code inspector arrived at Ronald Reeves' property, clipboard in hand, scanning the greenhouse like a crime scene. He measured, photographed, and finally admitted there was no violation. Sophia's anonymous tip had been a lie. An hour after the inspector left, a white Range Rover screeched to a halt on the gravel. Sophia Whitmore stormed out, her magenta blazer a slash of fury.
You think you are above the rules? This little jungle of yours is coming down, one way or another.
You've already tried the legal route, Sophia. It's not working.
Then, I'll find another way, and don't you dare think I won't.
Ronald held his ground, but the tremor in his hands betrayed his fear. That evening, Ronald Reeves climbed a ladder and mounted a security camera, aimed directly at the greenhouse.
If she tries anything, I'll have proof.
But Sophia Whitmore was already planning something no camera could prevent. 3 nights later, Sophia Whitmore sat in her Range Rover, a glass bottle filled with accelerant and a rag on the passenger seat. She lit the rag, hurled the bottle through the greenhouse roof, and the glass exploded inward. Fire caught immediately, climbing the dry vines and timber supports like a living thing starved for air. Ronald Reeves woke to an orange glow pulsing through his bedroom window. He ran outside barefoot.
Number. Not the orchids. Grandpa's vines.
Inside, 1,400 vanilla orchids curled black and died. 4 years of careful nurture per plant, erased in minutes. From the tree line 50 yards away, Sophia watched. Her smirk lasted only seconds as the fire's roar grew deafening.
It was supposed to be small, just the roof.
By the time firefighters arrived, the greenhouse had collapsed into a pyre of twisted metal and ash. Ronald stood in the muddy ash, the security camera hanging uselessly from its mount, its lens blackened. Nobody yet knew the true cost. The morning after the fire, Ronald Reeves walked through the ash and picked up a charred vanilla vine.
77 years of stewardship, gone in one night.
He called his insurance company first, then the National Confectioners Association's emergency line.
Ronald, tell me it's not all gone. That greenhouse supplied every vanilla bean for our Made in USA program, every boutique bakery, every pint of premium ice cream. That was our only domestic vanilla source. We're looking at tens of millions in damages.
Across the country, bakeries would soon realize their vanilla supply had been reduced to a few cured beans in Ronald's kitchen.
It's not just money, Marcus. It's my grandfather's life work. 1,400 plants, each one a generation of care.
Marcus Chen paused. Then his voice hardened. The NCA would sue whoever did this, and they would not settle. That morning, the most expensive HOA violation in American history began to take shape on paper. Ronald stood alone in the ruins, but he wasn't alone in the fight. A coalition of the nation's largest food companies was already forming behind him. Arson investigators combed the ash and recovered glass fragments from a bottle that hadn't come from the greenhouse. A neighbor's security camera caught a blurry figure in a light-colored jacket approaching the greenhouse minutes before the fire.
That's Sophia Whitmore. Look at the way she moves. She told me she'd handle it herself.
Within hours, investigators knocked on Sophia Whitmore's pristine front door.
This is harassment. I am the victim of a vindictive neighbor with a personal grudge.
Before the investigators left her driveway, Sophia was on the phone with the most aggressive defense firm in the state.
My client is absolutely innocent. These accusations are baseless, and we will fight them with every resource.
Brian Keir had a reputation for burying evidence and blaming victims. Sophia paid his retainer in full that afternoon.
She's going to try to bury this, just like she tried to bury my greenhouse.
But the evidence was piling up, and the National Confectioners Association's legal team was already drafting a motion that would make denial irrelevant. On the morning of October 12th, the National Confectioners Association filed a $30 million civil complaint against Sophia Whitmore.
You are serving me. For what? Growing flowers?
The complaint read, Defendant Sophia Whitmore did willfully and maliciously destroy the only domestic source of United States-grown vanilla, causing damages in excess of $30 million.
30 million? That's insane. This is a setup.
At the burned greenhouse, Ronald Reeves received his copy of the same complaint with a calm that betrayed nothing of the grief inside.
We will not allow reckless malice to destroy American food heritage. The National Confectioners Association will pursue full accountability.
The next morning, the newspaper headline read, Vanilla Crisis. Arson destroyed U.S. supply. Sophia retreated inside, slamming the door as reporters pressed microphones against the glass.
Brian, get over here now. They're trying to destroy me.
But the lawsuit was only the beginning. The criminal charges were next. The district attorney filed criminal charges, felony arson, criminal mischief, and a federal supply chain interference enhancement.
You can't do this. This is a witch hunt.
Her laptop search history killed her alibi, how to burn down a greenhouse.
Your Honor, my client is a respected community leader. She poses no flight risk.
The judge disagreed. Bail set at $500,000. Sophia was remanded into custody.
This is a nightmare. They're treating me like a criminal.
From the gallery, Ronald Reeves watched without expression, his glasses reflecting nothing.
It was just a greenhouse. How did it become this?
But the prosecution held one more piece of evidence that would elevate this case beyond a mere arson. The full weight of what she had destroyed was still unknown to the court. In a pre-trial hearing, the prosecution called a botanist to explain Vanilla planifolia's extraordinary life cycle. Each orchid blooms for only a single morning each year. If not pollinated by noon, the fruit never forms.
For 46 years, I never missed a pollination morning. One day, one chance, or the year is lost. My grandfather began this ritual in 1947, a skill passed down like a family prayer.
A black and white photograph was placed into evidence, William Reeves holding the original vanilla cuttings on a dockside in 1947.
His journal reads, February 12th. 3 cuttings survived the Atlantic. They will be our legacy. I will guard them with my life.
This isn't merely a crop. It is a century of stewardship, a living bridge between nations.
The packed gallery sat in stunned silence. Hands covered mouths. The loss had become something sacred, not just economic. At the defense table, Sophia Whitmore's lawyers stopped scribbling. The math of denial was failing. The judge ruled the botanical testimony admissible. The trial had just become about far more than a fire. The prosecution displayed a faded map, tracing William Reeves's 1947 voyage from Madagascar to the United States. A time-worn wooden crate stenciled vanilla, orchids, property of W. Reeves's, was carried into evidence.
He carried 3 live cuttings inside his coat, kept warm against his chest for the entire crossing.
Those cuttings became the only vanilla planifolia lineage on American soil, each being a direct descendant of that crossing. The image of William Reeves holding those first orchids went viral, a botanist's ark, reduced to ash.
The public is calling this a crime against heritage, Ronald. The 12 brands released a joint statement demanding maximum sentencing.
I am not asking for vengeance, just that my grandfather's name isn't erased.
The morning headline read, "The Last American Vanilla, a botanist's legacy burned by suburban spite." At her defense table, Sophia Whitmore stared at the news alerts piling up on her lawyer's tablet. The Madagascan connection was still unfolding. Soon, an entire nation would mourn through its ambassador. From the Madagascar embassy, Ambassador Rakoto dictated a personal letter of grief, handwritten on official letterhead. The letter read, "These orchids carried a piece of our earth. When you destroyed them, you destroyed a bridge between our countries."
Your Honor, we submit this letter from the Republic of Madagascar as evidence of the international cultural harm caused by the defendant.
Objection, Your Honor. This is irrelevant, emotional manipulation, not evidence.
Overruled. This letter speaks directly to the unique value of what was lost. The jury will consider it.
In the gallery, jurors leaned forward. A woman in the back row covered her mouth with both hands. The court also viewed a video deposition from Ambassador Rakoto, his voice carrying the weight of a nation's sorrow.
Madagascar gave this gift freely to America 70 years ago. We mourn with Mr. Reeves.
When the playback ended, the courtroom was so quiet they could hear the fluorescent hum. Judge Holbrook admitted the ambassador's letter into evidence. The arson of a greenhouse had become a wound between nations. Outside the courthouse, the narrative had shifted irreversibly. The ambassador's words echoed beyond the chamber. Protesters held signs reading "Justice for the Vanilla 1400." The loss of a single greenhouse had ignited a national conversation.
Your Honor, this jury has been exposed to inflammatory intermaterial politics. We move for an immediate mistrial.
Motion denied. The letter was admitted under proper evidentiary rules. The jury will weigh its probative value.
At the defense table, Sophia Whitmore's composure finally cracked. She scribbled frantic notes, but the pen shook violently in her hand. Outside, the crowd's chants bled through the courtroom walls. 1,400 orchids, 1,400 days of work, erased for nothing. In the gallery, Ronald Reeves sat motionless, his calm a silent rebuke to the woman who had tried to erase his family's name. Across the aisle, Sophia Whitmore's face crumbled. The woman who once called his greenhouse industrial blight now looked trapped and powerless.
They're going to destroy me, over flowers.
Her legal team scrambled for damage control, but the math was simple. The jury had heard the world mourn a garden. Behind closed doors, Brian Keir approached Marcus Chen with an offer Sophia hoped would make everything disappear.
$5 million, sealed criminal record, and Sophia walks away. You rebuild, Ronald recovers, and this nightmare ends.
Marcus relayed the offer to Ronald that evening. $5 million could fund a new greenhouse, a fresh start.
And she never faces what she did. She never has to say she's sorry for 1,400 lives.
After the call, Ronald opened his grandfather's metal lockbox. Inside, the leather ledger fell open to a familiar page. The entry read, "This vanilla is our family's proof that patience and care matter more than money."
Grandpa, if I take the money, I am selling your legacy. I won't do it. Marcus, no deal. I am not letting her buy her way out. Some things are worth more than money.
The settlement was dead. The trial would go forward, and Ronald would testify. Sophia Whitmore's last chance to avoid judgment had just vanished. The prosecution called its first witness, Ronald Reeves. He walked to the stand with the same measured composure he had carried since childhood.
Every morning, for 46 years, I walked into that greenhouse before sunrise. The orchids knew when it was time to bloom. My grandfather wrote this on February 12, 1947. The orchids arrived. Only 3 survived the journey. I will guard them with my life.
A single tear tracked down his cheek, but his voice never wavered. In the gallery, jurors leaned forward. A young woman in the second row pressed a tissue to her eyes. At the defense table, Sophia Whitmore stared at her lap. She could not meet his eyes. The prosecutor rested his direct examination. Now it was Brian Keir's turn to salvage a sinking case.
Mr. Reeves, are you absolutely certain it was my client? Could it have been someone else?
She stood on my property, looked me in the eye, and told me she'd handle it herself. I do not forget.
After 40 minutes of cross-examination, Brian Keir sat down. He had not landed a single blow. The prosecution then played a video deposition from Ambassador Rakoto. The screen flickered to life, and the ambassador's solemn face filled the courtroom.
We gave this gift to America in friendship. When you destroyed those vines, you destroyed a bridge between our countries.
In the gallery, not a single juror blinked. The silence was suffocating. Brian Keir half rose to object, but Judge Holbrook's glare pinned him back into his chair.
We can't fight the ambassador's tears. The jury is gone.
When the video ended, Judge Holbrook called a brief recess. The jury filed out without meeting anyone's eyes. Court resumed. The defense rested without calling Sophia Whitmore to testify. She would not face cross-examination. The prosecution delivered their closing argument, weaving the botanical evidence, the financial damage, and the ambassador's grief into a single damning narrative. Brian Keir argued that Sophia had been swept up in a neighborhood dispute, that she never intended such catastrophic harm. But his words fell flat. The trial was over. The jury retired to deliberate. Ronald Reeves remained in his seat, eyes closed, waiting. For 6 hours, the courthouse clocks seemed to slow. The gallery murmured, then fell into a tense, waiting silence.
Please, just come back. I need to hear them say it out loud.
In a holding room 2 floors down, Sophia Whitmore pressed her forehead against the cold wall and shook.
If they're out this long, they're either hung or convicting on all counts. There's no middle ground.
Judge Holbrook received a note from the bailiff. She adjusted her glasses and nodded slowly. The courtroom sketch artist shaded the empty jury box, capturing the weight of every passing minute. Then, at 6:10 in the evening, the door to the jury room opened.
Grandpa, this is it. Whatever they say, we carry it together.
The jury filed in silently, their faces unreadable. The foreperson held a single folded sheet of paper. Judge Holbrook took the paper, read it without expression, and handed it back. Then she looked up. The foreperson rose. Judge Holbrook asked the single question that had hung over the courtroom for weeks. On the count of felony arson, guilty. On the count of federal supply chain interference, guilty.
No, that's not right.
77 years, Grandpa. They heard you?
The court thanks the jury for their service. Sentencing is set for tomorrow morning. The defendant is remanded until then.
As Sophia Whitmore was led away in handcuffs, the $30 million civil judgment already echoed through the financial world.
Ronald, you did it. The brands are already releasing a joint statement. This is a victory for every family bakery that lost its vanilla.
The lawsuit that began as a single arson case had become a benchmark for agricultural crimes. Sophia Whitmore spent her last night before sentencing staring at the ceiling of a holding cell, her magenta blazer, traded for a prison uniform. But the world was waiting for one last word: the sentence. The next morning, the courtroom was even more packed. The 12 Brands executives sat shoulder to shoulder in the front row.
Sophia Whitmore, you did not make a mistake. You committed a deliberate, calculated act of cruelty against a living legacy that spanned generations and continents. You have shown no true remorse. For the felony arson, the federal supply chain interference, and in consideration of the international harm, I sentence you to 14 years in federal prison.
The gavel fell. The sound cracked through the silent chamber like a door closing forever.
14 years. Over flowers?
Sophia Whitmore was handcuffed for the final time and led from the courtroom, her pleas swallowed by the heavy doors.
It's over, Grandpa. The field is clear.
In the weeks that followed, Sophia Whitmore was transferred to a federal detention facility, her name a cautionary tale, whispered in HOA boardrooms. For Ronald Reeves, the sentence was not revenge but a restoration of balance, a quiet affirmation that some things, like vanilla and memory, cannot be burned. The headline promise had been kept: 14 years for the woman who burned America's only domestic vanilla supply. Within hours of the sentencing, the 12 household name brands issued a joint statement on every major news platform.
Sophia Whitmore will be remembered not as a community leader, but as the woman who tried to burn American vanilla off the map. She failed.
The morning newspaper ran a banner headline: Vanilla Crisis Ends. Arsonist Jailed. Domestic Supply to be Restored.
My grandfather didn't bring those orchids here for vengeance. He brought them for patience, for care. That's what we'll restore first.
Mr. Reeves, the Republic of Madagascar, would like to send you 12 new vanilla cuttings from our National Botanical Garden. The bridge will be rebuilt.
2 weeks later, a small wooden crate arrived at Ronald's farm, stenciled Vanilla Orchids, Embassy of Madagascar.
12 cuttings. One for each brand that stood with us. 4 years from now, we'll be back.
The 12 brands pledged funding for a state-of-the-art greenhouse, ensuring the next generation of American vanilla would survive any threat. Boutique bakeries across the country prepared special menus for the return of Reeves family vanilla, their shelves empty but their hope full.
It will take 4 years before we harvest again, but we've got time. And we've got time, and we've got a promise to keep.
Months later, the charred ground had been cleared and a small greenhouse frame stood against the morning sky. Each day, Ronald Reeves opened his grandfather's leather journal, tracing the handwriting that had guided his hands since boyhood. Then, one late spring morning, he walked into the tiny greenhouse and stopped breathing.
There it is. The first bloom. We're back.
A single vanilla flower had opened on a cutting, no thicker than a pencil. Pale yellow, fragile, alive. He knelt with the same pollination tool his grandfather had used in 1947 and gently transferred the pollen before noon.
Welcome home. Grandpa would be so proud.
Outside, morning sun cut through the mist, gilding the skeletal ruins of the old greenhouse and the fresh wood of the new one. A single vanilla flower growing from the ash, proof that some legacies burn brighter than any fire. And in that quiet, Ronald Reeves knew the bridge between continents and between generations had been rebuilt. The new greenhouse stood gleaming in golden light, its glass catching the last rays of a long day. Inside, young vanilla vines spiraled up fresh cedar supports, each tendril a promise. Ronald Reeves stood beside them, his white coat replaced with a simple shirt, his hands calm. He closed his grandfather's leather journal and set it on a shelf among the pots. The next chapter was beginning. Outside, the charred skeleton of the old greenhouse remained, not as a scar, but as a testament. In the soil where 1,400 orchids died, 1,400 new ones would rise. Some legacies don't burn. Some bridges, once built, cannot be destroyed. And some men, like Ronald Reeves, carry their grandfather's promises like seeds waiting for spring, fade to black,